buried in the snowstorm. The snow was falling hard. Thick white flakes covered everything. The cold wind howled across the frozen ground like a wild animal. The planet was quiet, too quiet. Only the crunch of boots in the snow broke the silence. 3. Humans moved slowly through the storm. They wore heavy suits and visors to block the cold. Their names were Jackson, Lena, and Marcus. They were part of a small research team sent to explore the edge of the ice zone on this alien world. "Visibility's getting worse," Lena said, looking at her scanner. "We're close to the signal," Jackson replied, raising his hand to block the wind. "There's nothing out here," Marcus muttered, "just snow and more snow." Suddenly, Lena stopped. Her scanner beeped loudly. "Wait, I'm getting a reading. Something under the snow." Jackson turned. "Living?" "I don't know," she said. "The signal is weak, but it's moving." Without waiting, Jackson dropped to his knees and began digging through the snow. The others joined him. Their gloves were heavy, but they worked fast. Snow flew into the air as they dug deeper and deeper. Then Jackson's hand hit something soft. He froze. "It's flesh," he whispered. "I found something." They carefully uncovered the shape. It was small, maybe the size of a teenage girl. She was curled up tightly, like she had fallen asleep. Her skin was pale lavender, and her hair was white like the snow. 2 small horns curved from her forehead. Her clothes were torn, frozen stiff. Her lips were blue. Her eyes were shut. Lena gasped. "It's a girl. An alien girl. Is she alive?" Marcus asked. Jackson pressed his fingers to her neck. "I think I feel a pulse. Weak. But it's there." "She's freezing to death," Lena said. "We need to warm her up or she'll die." They looked around. There was no shelter nearby. No building, no ship, just ice and storm. "Our emergency heater is out," Marcus said. "We lost power hours ago." Lena looked at the girl, then back at the others. "There's only one thing we can do." They all knew what she meant. Jackson nodded. Without another word, they pulled out their thermal blankets and unzipped their suits slightly. The cold stung their skin, but they didn't care. Jackson took the alien girl into his arms, wrapping her inside the blanket. Lena and Marcus pressed, close, surrounding her with their own body heat. For a moment, none of them spoke. The wind screamed around them. Snow piled up on their shoulders. But inside the blanket, the girl was warm. Jackson could feel her faint breath against his neck. "She's breathing better," he whispered. "We just bought her a few more minutes," Lena said. "We have to keep going. There's an emergency pod 2 kilometers south." Marcus looked, worried. "Carrying her through this storm will slow us down." Jackson looked down at the girl. Her fingers twitched. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she was still unconscious. "I don't care," Jackson said. "We're not leaving her behind." The team moved together, carefully, step by step through the snow. Jackson carried the girl, wrapped in heat. Lena led the way with the scanner. Marcus kept watch behind them. Hours passed. The wind grew stronger. Then, the scanner blinked. A weak green dot flashed on the screen. "There!" Lena shouted. "The pod's up ahead." They rushed forward. Through the storm, a small metal shape appeared. The emergency pod. Shelter at last. They reached the door, slammed the emergency code, and fell inside. The door closed behind them. Heat flooded the space. The lights flickered on. Jackson laid the alien girl down on the floor near the heater. Her body was still cold, but color was returning to her skin. Her eyes moved under her eyelids. "She's going to make it," Lena said softly. Marcus exhaled, in relief. "We saved her." Jackson stared at the girl's face. Who was she? Why was she out there, buried in the snow, half dead? And most importantly, what was she running from? She woke up screaming. The pod was warm now. The wind outside howled like a ghost, but inside, the humans finally had shelter. The alien girl lay near the heater, wrapped in blankets, her body still shivering slightly. Her skin had color again. Her fingers twitched. Her breath was steady. Jackson sat near her, watching in silence. He couldn't stop thinking about how close she had been to death. Just hours earlier, she was buried under snow, alone, dying, forgotten. Now, she was here. But who was she? Suddenly, her eyes shot open. Bright, glowing violet eyes stared up at the ceiling. Then she screamed. A sharp, painful scream filled the pod. Her voice was high-pitched, alien, not like anything they had heard before. She gasped for air, then screamed again, louder, her body jerking away from the blankets as if they were on fire. Jackson jumped back in shock. "She's awake." "Careful," Lena shouted, moving toward the girl with open hands. "She's in shock." The alien girl crawled backward, bumping into the wall, her eyes wide with fear. She looked at the humans like they were monsters. Her lips moved quickly in her language, fast and frightened, but they didn't understand a word. "Easy," Jackson said, holding his hands up. "We're not here to hurt you." But the girl wasn't listening. She stared at the heater, then at the door, and then at her own body, covered in human clothing and blankets. She screamed again. Then something strange happened. She touched her neck and began crying quietly, as if realizing she was still alive. Not dreaming. Not hallucinating. Alive. Lena sat beside her slowly. "It's okay," she said, voice calm. "You're safe now." The girl flinched. Jackson noticed her eyes scanning the pod, calculating escape routes. She was scared but not weak. She had the eyes of a survivor. The kind who had seen too much, too young. Marcus whispered, "She's not just afraid. She thinks we're like the others." "What others?" Lena asked softly, but the girl didn't answer. Instead, she pointed at a mark on her arm. A faint burn. A symbol. It looked branded. The room went silent. Jackson slowly took out his ration bar and placed it on the floor, then backed away. The girl stared at it like it might be poison. Then, carefully, she picked it up. Her hands shook, but she bit into it and didn't stop eating. Minutes passed. The storm outside raged on. Inside, the air was heavy with questions. Finally, the girl looked at Jackson. Her voice was soft, broken, but clear. She said just one word: "Hunter." Signs in the ice. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind felt even colder. Outside, the pod, everything was white and still. Snow covered the land like a quiet graveyard, but when Jackson stepped out with his scanner, he felt something was wrong. Very wrong. Lena followed him, her breath fogging up her visor. "Any new readings?" "Yeah," Jackson said, eyes locked on the scanner. "Something big came through here. And recently." Marcus stepped out last, holding his blaster. "You think it's whatever she called the hunter?" Jackson didn't answer. Instead, he knelt down and brushed snow from a deep groove in the ground. It wasn't a footprint. It was a claw mark. Over a meter long. Lena's eyes widened. That thing didn't just pass by. It was searching. Nearby, more marks followed, a broken tree trunk, scorch marks in the snow, and large footprints that sank deep into the ground. They circled the pod, came close, then walked away. Marcus. Cursed. It knew we were here. "No," Jackson whispered. "It checked and decided not to attack." "That's worse," Lena added. "It means it's smart." Inside the pod, the alien girl sat near the heater, hugging her knees. Her name was still unknown. But when Lena showed her a picture of the claw marks on the scanner screen, she froze. Her eyes filled with fear. Then she stood up, walked to the wall, and started drawing with her fingers in the frost on the metal. At first, it looked like random lines, but slowly, a shape took form. It was a beast. Tall, thin, with 4 arms, spikes on its back, and glowing eyes. She drew a human beside it, tiny in comparison. Then, without looking back, she tapped her chest. She had seen it. Lena swallowed, That thing hunted her. She survived it once, Marcus said, gripping his weapon tighter. That means it'll come again. Just then the pod's radar pinged. A red blip. Something moved fast across the ice, then stopped. Whatever it is, Jackson said. It's watching us. The girl suddenly stood up, walked to Jackson, and pointed to the south. Far away, in that direction, lay a black canyon, a place the maps marked as unstable and uninhabitable. Jackson frowned. You want us to go there? The girl didn't speak, but her eyes were clear. She wasn't just running anymore. She was leading them somewhere. But why? And what waited inside that canyon? She spoke one word. Hunter. The pod's heater hummed softly, but no one inside felt warm. The alien girl sat quietly in the corner, her knees pulled to her chest, eyes staring at the wall. Since drawing the beast's shape in frost, she hadn't spoken a single word. But her silence wasn't peace, it was fear. Jackson, Lena, and Marcus huddled on the other side, whispering. We can't stay here much longer, Marcus said. If that thing's nearby, we're sitting ducks. She hasn't told us enough, Lena replied. We don't even know her name. Jackson glanced toward the girl. She hadn't moved in hours. But just then she did. Slowly, she stood up and walked over to the table where the humans had placed their gear. She picked up a piece of burnt plastic, part of the scanner casing, and walked to the wall again. She began to draw. This time it was different. She drew a village, simple. Huts, towers, smoke rising from small fires. Then over the village she drew a dark shape in the sky, a shadow, a monster, the same four-armed figure with glowing eyes. Then she added fire and bodies, and finally, a girl running alone into the snow. Everyone went quiet. Jackson stepped closer. That was your home, wasn't it? The girl didn't respond, but her hands shook. Jackson placed a hand on his chest. Jackson. Then he pointed at Lena and Marcus. Lena. Marcus. He tapped her chest gently. You? She hesitated. Then slowly, very softly, she said, Kira. Her voice was hoarse, like it hadn't been used in days. Jackson smiled gently. Kira, we want to help you. But at the word help, Kira's body tensed. She looked straight at him. Her violet eyes were full of something dark, not fear, memory. Then she said the second word, Hunter. She pointed to her branded arm. The mark burned into her skin. Then she touched her neck and mimed a collar snapping closed. Lena's eyes widened. She wasn't just hunted. She was captured? Kira nodded slowly. Then she lifted the edge of her shirt. There, across her ribs, were scars, deep ones. Claw marks. Marcus stepped back. That thing didn't just chase her. It owned her. Jackson felt cold. It uses sentient creatures for sport, Lena's voice cracked. Or experiments. Kira walked to the table, picked up a metal pipe, and smashed it into the wall. Not in anger. She was showing them something. She mimed holding it like a spear. Then she mimed hiding, running, attacking. Jackson stared at her. You escaped. She nodded once. Lena whispered, and now it's hunting her to finish what it started. Just then, the radar pinged again. This time, closer. Red light blinked, past they had hours, maybe less. Jackson looked at Kira. We need to know how to fight it. You're the only one who's faced it. Kira looked at them all, and for the first time, she nodded. Then she picked up a piece of gear, opened the side panel, and began pulling out wires. Marcus blinked. She knows tech? She knows more than we think, Jackson replied. Kira wasn't just a victim. She was getting ready for war. Preparing. For the beast, Kira worked fast. Too fast for someone half-frozen days ago. Wires, broken scanner parts, and metal scraps were spread across the table inside the pod. Her hands moved with purpose. She cut, rewired, and assembled strange shapes none of the humans understood. Marcus leaned closer. What is she building? Lena shrugged. Not sure. But it's not random. Kira didn't look up. She connected 2 broken sensors and taped them to the wall near the door. Then she turned to Jackson and pointed outside, to the frozen wasteland. Jackson understood. She wasn't building to escape. She was setting traps. The team followed her out into the snow. Kira walked ahead, her steps slow but sure. Her eyes scanned the horizon. She stopped near a ridge, knelt down, and began digging with her hands. The snow gave way to icy soil, perfect ground for hiding weapons. She pointed to the spot, then at the makeshift bombs she was carrying in her satchel. Small, barely enough to destroy a wall, but powerful if placed right. She knows where it's going to come from, Jackson whispered. This place. She's been here before. Kira nodded once. She drew a rough map in the snow using a stick. The ridge, the pod, the cliff behind it, and a path leading straight to them. That's where it will attack from, Lena said, following her drawing. No, Kira said softly. Her voice cracked. She circled another point. That's where we ambush it. Inside the pod, Kira found a discarded alien energy cell. It was unstable, cracked, but still humming faintly. She wrapped it in metal pieces, creating a pressure trap. If stepped on, it would explode. Jackson watched closely. Where did you learn all this? Kira looked at him, face unreadable. I was not just prey, I was test. Lena froze. Test? Kira touched her head. They gave us machines, told us to fight, to escape. If we lived, we were taken again. Marcus looked horrified. She was in a death game. Kira didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She kept working. She had done this before, and now she was ready to end it. The sun began to set. The snow turned golden under the last light. Jackson checked the traps, one by the rocks, one inside a hollow tree, another beneath a pile of fake gear made to look like a fallen human. Kira stood at the edge of the cliff looking into the distance. Then she whispered, "It smells heat. It hunts breath. No sound. No fire." Jackson nodded. "We'll stay, cold and quiet. You tell us when." Kira didn't move. "It comes after I sleep. It waits until I'm weak." Marcus stared. "How do you know?" Kira's eyes darkened. "Because that's how it caught my sister." No one said a word. She walked back to the pod slowly. This time, I will not sleep. Inside, the pod was dark. All power was cut to reduce the heat signature. The humans lay hidden behind crates and metal panels, weapons ready, hearts pounding, and Kira. Kira sat in the middle of the pod, eyes open, back straight, her hand gripping a sharp metal rod like a spear. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She waited. Outside, the wind stopped, and the snow started to melt. Something hot was coming. Blood in the snow. The wind had stopped. The snow no longer fell. Silence covered the land like a blanket. Too quiet, like even nature was holding its breath. Inside the pod, no one moved. Jackson gripped, his weapon tight. Lena hid behind a crate, her eyes locked on the scanner. Marcus held his finger near the remote detonator, and in the center sat Kira, perfectly still. Her eyes didn't blink. Her spear never dropped. She was waiting. Then, sound, not a growl, not footsteps, just a hiss, soft, metallic, like breath through sharp teeth. Jackson mouthed, "It's here." The outer door creaked. They had disabled the locks hours ago, on purpose. They wanted it to come in, but even knowing that, their hearts pounded as the door slowly opened. Steam rose from outside, and with it, a shadow. It entered slowly, taller than the doorway. It had to bend to fit. 4 long arms dragged claws across the walls. Its skin was black and wet, like polished armor. Glowing orange eyes scanned the pod, hunting for heat. It sniffed the Air stopped, and then it saw Kira, sitting in the center, not moving, not afraid. The hunter hissed. It stepped forward. Boom! The first trap exploded near the door, spraying metal and shrapnel. The beast roared in pain but didn't fall. It leapt forward like lightning. Kira dodged left. The spear in her hand flashed, slashing across the monster's lower arm. It screamed, then swiped at her with the other three. But before it could land a hit, bang! Jackson fired from the side, hitting its back. Boom! Marcus triggered the second mine, right beneath the floor. The beast fell, stunned, growling, but not dead. It was fast. Too fast. It turned, grabbed a crate, and hurled it across the pod, smashing Marcus into the wall. "Marcus!" Lena screamed. Kira charged again, stabbing the spear into its leg. The hunter roared and grabbed her by the throat, lifting her off the ground. Her feet kicked wildly. Her eyes widened, but she didn't scream. Instead, she smiled and dropped something. The core bomb. It hit the floor, blinking red. 2. 1. Krakoom. The blast shook the entire pod. Fire burst through the room. Metal flew in all directions. Everyone was thrown off their feet. Smoke filled the air. Everything was silent again. Jackson coughed, crawling through the wreckage. "Kira." Lena pulled herself from under the rubble, blood on her face. "Marcus?" "I'm alive," Marcus groaned, buried under metal. Jackson looked around. Then he saw it, the hunter's body, burned, broken, bleeding dark blue blood into the snow, but still alive, crawling. Kira rose from the ashes, one side of her face burned, shoulder dislocated, but still standing. She walked slowly, dragging the metal spear. The hunter turned its head to her. It hissed one last time. She said nothing. She drove the spear into its chest, deep. It twitched once, then stopped. Dead. Outside, snow began to fall again. Soft. Quiet. Jackson limped out of the pod and looked up. The stars were coming out. Lena helped Marcus walk. Kira stood in the door, watching the snow. Her body was shaking. Not from fear, not from pain, but from something else. Freedom. She looked at the sky, and for the first time in years, she closed her eyes and let the snow fall gently on her face. She had ended it, with humans beside her. She chose to stay. The smoke had faded. The snow outside the pod had turned red, not from the sunset, but from the blood of a monster that had once haunted the galaxy. The hunter, the terror of the ice fields, the beast that had hunted sentient, life for sport, was finally dead. The battlefield was quiet now. Kira stood over its body, breathing hard. Her hair was covered in ash, her shoulder dislocated, her left leg dragging slightly. But she didn't fall. She couldn't. Not yet. Jackson walked over limping, his face bruised, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You did it," he said quietly. Kira didn't reply. Her violet eyes looked down at the beast one last time. Then she dropped the metal spear beside it. "No more," she whispered. Inside the pod, Lena was wrapping Marcus's wounds. He had broken ribs, maybe more. But he was alive. Barely. "We need medevac," Lena said. "Now." Jackson nodded. He opened the comm and sent a beacon into orbit. It was time to leave. But as the emergency ship confirmed their pickup coordinates and ETA, Jackson noticed something. Kira wasn't preparing. She wasn't packing. She was standing just outside the pod, looking toward the mountains, toward the wild. "Kira?" he called. She didn't move. He stepped closer. "The ship's coming in 30 minutes. We're going home." Still no response. Then softly she said, "I have no home." Jackson stood beside her in the snow. "You can come with us." She looked at him. "Where?" "To Earth. Or any colony. World. We can find you a safe place, a future." She looked away. "I am not like you. Your people will fear me." "Not all," Jackson said. Some will protect you like we did. You are soldiers. Special. She touched the burned metal of the pod. Most would not have saved me. Jackson looked at her, thoughtful. We didn't save you. We just didn't leave you behind. She smiled, faintly, the first smile he'd ever seen on her. That is same. She walked a few steps toward the cliff's edge. Long ago, she said slowly, my people lived beyond these hills, cold lands, but we had warmth. We had music. She closed her eyes. The hunters came in the night, took the strongest, chained the rest. They marked us, broke us, one by one. She looked at the deep scar across her ribs. They made me fight others like me, every day, until only I remained. Jackson didn't interrupt. They told me I was a survivor, she said bitterly. I hated that word. She looked at him, again. But now, I do not hate it. The evac ship appeared in the sky, small at first, then larger, wings slicing through the clouds. Jackson sighed. It's time. Kira looked at the rising sun behind the mountain. I thought I would die here, she said. You almost did, Jackson replied, but I didn't, she said. He nodded. Because you're stronger than you think. She turned to him. I am strong. Because you gave me warmth when I had nothing. Not fire, not food, just kindness. Then she stepped closer. And I want to stay with that. If I can. Jackson blinked. You mean, I want to stay with your people, with you. The evac team arrived, 3 soldiers and a medic. They were cautious at first, guns raised, eyes wide when they saw the creature's corpse. Did you kill this? One of them asked. Jackson nodded. Not just us. He pointed at Kira. The soldiers looked at her, burned, scarred, eyes glowing. She stood tall. One soldier whispered, Is she human? No, Jackson said proudly, but she's one of us. The journey back to orbit was quiet. Kira sat beside Jackson, staring out the window. Stars blinked in the dark. The frozen world below looked peaceful now, silent, clean, but she remembered what it had taken: pain, fear, loss, and hope. For the first time, she reached out and held Jackson's hand. He didn't pull away. He held hers back. Weeks passed. Kira was given safe status under human protection. A small cabin was built for her on a green colony world with rivers and sun. She planted her first flower and cried when it bloomed. It was blue, like her sister's favorite color. Jackson visited often. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they didn't need to. One evening, as the stars lit up the sky, Kira looked at him and asked, Do you think I'll ever feel normal? He smiled. You're not normal, Kira. She looked down. You're better, he said. She smiled again. And for the first time since the snow, she laughed.